record? Did it give you the little, we're recording? Okay, we're recording. So if you have a question for that panelist and what they've just said, by all means, raise your hand, do the little hand raise thing down at the bottom, and I will unmute you so you can ask your question. If not, if it's a general question for any panelist, please hold it until the end, and then we'll have a chance for those at the end for anybody to ask whatever's on their mind. Okay, sounds like fun. Oh, we have more people. Let me let them in. There we go, 2 more. Okay, let's go ahead and get started then. Let's see here. Who should we start with? I'm just gonna go through on the panel. Stacy Kopp is our first speaker. I'm just looking through the poster. Okay, and you're all unmuted. Good. Stacy, there you go.
Okay, thanks.
Stacy, good evening. I was wondering if you could take a second just to introduce yourself and your job title and tell us a little bit about what your job entails.
Sure. My name's Stacy Kopp. I'm an assistant professor at the University of California, Irvine, as my background suggests. And I'm in the Department of Materials Science and Engineering. I'm also affiliated with the Department of Physics and Astronomy and Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering. And my job involves teaching materials science and materials physics to students here at UCI. And also the bigger part of my job is doing research on DNA and polymer-based nanomaterials for a variety of applications, from fundamental science, which is not an application, but is really fun, to bioimaging, biosensing, and photonics, or how light and materials interact with one another.
Great.
Did I answer everything?
I think so.
Okay.
How did you get interested in this career choice in the first place? And what kind of traffic did you? How did you know you wanted to go into it?
Sure. So to be honest, when I was in college and even in grad school, I didn't really know what materials science was. But I was always interested in science in high school, and I decided to study physics and biology as a undergraduate student. So I'm from New Mexico, I'm not from California. And I went to college at the University of Arizona, which is in Tucson, Arizona. It's really, really hot. And it was great because it's so hot to spend time in a dark room in a laboratory. So one of the fun things I got involved in as an undergraduate, right away, I was very fortunate, was research. So I joined the lab of a professor in physics. He was a biophysicist, so he studied the intersection of physics and living organisms. And he let me join his lab as a freshman. And then I had a variety of research experiences in that lab, and also at national laboratories, since there's several in New Mexico where I grew up. And that really taught me that I love research. So using science to answer questions that no one has ever answered before, and solve problems that no one has solved before. Mm-hmm. And so because of my love for research, I decided to go to grad school to do more school, but more importantly, do more research. And I got my PhD at the University of California, Santa Barbara. That was the first time I lived in California. And then after that point, I knew still I really liked research. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a professor though. So I went and did what's called a postdoc, which means after you become a doctor, you go do another temporary job. And I went to Los Alamos National Laboratory, where I was there for 2.5 years. But I also had the opportunity to interview at a few universities, and I realized being at the National Laboratory that I missed being around students all the time, because I'd worked with a lot of undergraduates during my PhD. So that's what drew me back to apply for jobs as a professor, and ultimately I ended up at UC Irvine.
Very cool. If you were, I was about to say, if you're speaking to our students, you are speaking to our students. They're right here. Are there any other things that you think STEM students should know about if they're trying to pick which career path they should take? A lot of our students really haven't had those experiences yet. And how would you advise them on, if you were talking to the younger version of you, what would you say?
So I think obviously getting a job where you can make a good living and support yourself and your family is really important. It's a big bonus if that job is also something you really, really enjoy. So I think college is a time to explore different career paths, and there's lots of them in STEM. And one of the best ways to explore them is just to talk to your professors. Ask them what is it about their job that they like and about their area of research. Most of your professors do active research or did active research. And then there's also cool opportunities to do internships at companies or at four-year universities like mine, or at national laboratories. And there are several national laboratories that have specific programs for community college students. And that's because we realize the national need for bringing everyone into the scientific enterprise. And it's really important to have people from all kinds of backgrounds and experiences. So these experiences to actually get hands-on practice doing what I do for my job now, these were really formative for me. And that's how I found my passion for research. Now, when I was an undergrad, did I know at that time that I'd be studying DNA-based nanomaterials? Absolutely not. So, but I did understand that I really enjoyed pushing the bounds of science. And I still feel like my job is kind of taking me on a trajectory where I'm not sure exactly where that will go, but that's because that's what research is.
Right. That's the best part. Very cool. Interesting. Thank you very much. Joanna, let me unmute you here. There. Okay. I'm sorry. How do you pronounce, is it Farias?
Yeah, that's fine, Bradley. Farias, Farias, either way.
Okay.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Everybody else, are you okay? Just nod. Yeah, okay. Good. So,
yeah. And I think Linda has a question.
Linda has a question? Oh.
Yes.
Let's see, I've got her texting me and I've got, oh, here we go. Hold on. Save buttons. Oh, here we go. Try this button. Linda, I'm unmuting you right now.
Thank you. I think we have some people waiting.
Oh, yeah, I just let them in. Yeah, they're
okay,
in.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me because there are like 8 of them in there. I forgot they were in there. Okay. Yeah, so Joanna, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your career path and where you are now?
Sure, yeah. So my name is Joanna Farias. I started my career path, started my education back in community college, actually Chaffee Community College. And then I transferred to Cal Poly Pomona, which I recently graduated from as of May of 2021. I graduated in aerospace engineering. And sorry, Bradley, you said also how I chose my career path?
Oh, well, where are you now? I mean, in terms of what you're doing career-wise?
Oh, that's right. Okay, so job title, right? So now my job title at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, also known as one of the NASA centers, is mechanical integration and testing. So basically, what we do is we have spacecraft that have not been made before, so everything has kind of like funny shapes. My job is to help engineers and other scientists get hardware from point A to point B. So that means going into thermal vacuum cycling, vibration tables, shock tables, where we pretty much imitate the shock of the deployment, the time when the payload deploys from the launch vehicle. And so basically that involves designing mechanical systems, electronic systems. It could be structural supports to more complicated items like actuators, offloading systems, and it involves what do you call that? Installation, and also usually proof testing the hardware as well.
Wow, very cool. Is it what you expected? I mean, in terms of when you were in school versus now on the job, is it what you expected to be doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's what I expected to be doing and more, definitely a lot more, in a good way. So when I was at Cal Poly, I did get a chance to intern here at JPL. I interned a total of 3 times. And during those 3 internships, basically what happened was after my first internship, I networked like crazy to get a second internship in a different department. So what I did is I knew that I liked JPL. The only thing I didn't know was which department I wanted to work for. So what I did after my first internship was just network a ton. And then from there on, I made it a point to move into different groups. So I began with the optomechanical group, designing and testing a what they call a test bench, basically a mock-up of a telescope. So after that, I wanted to know what it was like to work in a manufacturing building and be on that side of the house. So I went from making drawings and making models to receiving the drawings and the models and then making the actual parts for the engineers. And then from there, I decided that the only thing I hadn't done yet, I had done design, I had done integration, design, I had put together hardware, I had done CAD, and then lots of presentations and reviews. And I thought, what's something I haven't done yet? And I thought of integration and testing. So by being in the manufacturing building, all the engineers and managers, they kind of all have to go through there because they need parts made. And so I networked a little more and I found the person to connect with for integration and testing. And that's how I ended up where I am now. So that is to say that was happening while I was in school. So then I knew more or less what it would be like once I would graduate.
That's
So
fantastic.
I did get that kind of experience.
It sounds like you did a lot. Like you said, it sounds like you networked the heck out of those jobs. What advice would you give to students who haven't necessarily had the experience with networking? How would they go about do they just walk up to a person and said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so," or do you attend events? I mean, how did you actually pragmatically do the networking you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a right timing, right? So I've had situations where there's somebody that I really want to meet and I see them in the cafeteria. And that's the thing about JPL. Everybody here is super friendly. I mean, I could see the director having lunch in the cafeteria and I could go up to him and say hello, and that's the main guy here at JPL, the director. But there are times when, they're busy and you don't want to, just walk up to them cold turkey and introduce yourself because maybe they're having meetings. Yeah, so the way I do it, or the way I did it back when I was interning, was sending emails. So I sent an email to this guy, Sergio, who is my section manager now. So Sergio has about 300 to 400 employees under him. So he was pretty intimidating for me as a student and as an intern to, email him. But I thought, hey, I have nothing to lose. I'm only here for 3 months, so I got to make the best out of it. I sent Sergio a couple of emails actually, and he's a super busy guy, which is understandable. After the second email, he reached back out to me and he said, basically in my emails, I introduce myself. I said, hi, I'm an intern here. I want to know more about the lab. I'm interested in so-and-so. So you do have to do a little bit of research first before, reaching out to them. So I knew that Sergio was the section manager for integration and testing and for small spacecraft. So knowing that, I, tailored my email based off of that. And I mentioned that I was interested in small spacecraft. I really wanted to get my hands on integration and testing. That's something I hadn't done before. Basically just introduced myself. I mentioned that I would be, this was back in summer of 2019. So I mentioned that I would be graduating in a year, and it would be or 2 years from then, and that it would be a great experience if I could somehow maybe intern in his department. And so the follow-up email was, again, hi Sergio, I'm following up on my last email, etc. So eventually he did respond and he said, hello, and he was really friendly, and he set up a meeting in person. And so I met him back in 2020, summer of 2019. It was actually my very last day of that internship. And I met him. He basically gave me an on-the-spot interview. And then he said, keep in contact. So I did. So I sent him emails every 3 to 4 months or so.
That's fantastic. And so it sounds like one of your big takeaways from here is make sure you do your homework before you send an email like into the blind like that. I think that's very, it's awesome advice. People like to know that you actually did your homework before you, sent them that email, right? So that's fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like it worked really well so far for you. Congratulations. Does anybody have any specific questions for Stacy or Joanna about what they've said so far? I realized I didn't give a chance to have people to ask questions of Stacy if there were things about her specific things. I'm just looking through the lists here. If you have questions, feel free to use the little reactions button at the bottom to raise your hand so I can see that you're raising your hand. I'm looking. No, nothing yet. Oh, okay, we do have a few questions. I'm unmuting Janice, who has a question. Janice, there you go. Janice, hi, welcome, how are you?
Hi, good.
Good. How can we help you? What questions do you have for our panelists there? Oh, no, she's muted again. I'll unmute her.
Sorry, I accidentally muted myself.
Right. Okay.
So my question is for Joanna. Joanna, we have, I'm here in part of a program called Upward Bound at JP College. So we work with high school students who are going to be the first in their families to go to college. So we have a lot of students here today. And I know that we have a lot of female students that are, Cal Poly is a very local school. And so the internship that you got at JPL, was that something that Cal Poly offered? Did you have to do digging to get that internship in itself?
Hi, Janice. Yeah, good question. No, so actually the way it happened to me was really strange. I started, so like I mentioned, I started at community college right at Chaffey, actually. And so while at Chaffey, I was in the engineering club, and somebody in the club mentioned a program called NCAS, that's NCAS, which stands for, I believe, NASA Community College Aerospace Scholars. And I think it's an ongoing program that, people can look up. I believe you apply sometime in like late October.
Okay.
Basically, it's a program for community college students only. You apply, it's like a 3-step process. Basically, you apply, you need 2 recommendation letters, an essay as to why you deserve a spot, and then you do some reading and writing and taking quizzes. And then the 3rd step is you actually get to go to a NASA center and compete in person. So that's actually what ended up happening. I came to JPO and I competed for 4 days. It's everything paid for. They pay for your gas or for your flight if you're not from California or you're not nearby. So yeah, it's a 4-day competition. And then I was in that competition, and the guy that was assigned to us, Otto, so we ended up winning 1st place, and I was a team lead for that team. So from there, Otto asked me if I wanted to intern that fall. So that was summer of 2017. That was June. And then I started interning in September of 2017. But I do have to mention, a lot of people from that NCAS program did get to intern later in the fall. So I didn't go the traditional route where you apply, but regardless, it was based off of an application, but through NCAS, if anything.
Okay. Wow, thank you so much. And I mean, for anyone else who's going to speak today too, if you have any tips for our high school students specifically, what to look out for even now, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Joanna, and congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks, Janice. And then one thing I did want to mention, oh, sorry, Bradley.
No, I was just like, that's awesome. You came from Chaffey and went, that was awesome stuff. Wonderful.
Yeah, so it wasn't a very traditional way, but I've seen a lot of people intern like that through programs like those competitions like NCAS. One advice I would have for high school students, because I feel that my journey to JPL did start in high school when I started taking engineering classes in high school. So I did go to Chaffey High School, and they offered, I believe it was called architectural drawing back then. So basically, if you have students in high school that are interested in engineering, I would highly suggest they start taking some sort of CAD program, CAD, CAD, computer aided design program.
Okay.
I had that under my belt. Then when I went to Chaffey College, that only got reinforced by taking more CAD at Chaffey College. And I feel that was probably most likely the reason, or one of the main reasons why Otto was able to bring me into JPL, because I had those skills under my belt, the CAD. I hadn't taken upper division math. I hadn't taken my physics. I hadn't done chemistry. So I think CAD is really important. And I know a lot of high schools do offer that. So that would be a good start for high school students.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll definitely recommend that.
Great, thank you very much. Very cool. We have another question from Diana. Diana, I'm putting the ask you to unmute right now, so you should be able to unmute yourself. Hi, Anna. How are
Hi,
you?
thank you so much so far for all the information. I'm doing great, thank you. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
Thank
What's your
you.
question
Awesome.
for our panelists this evening?
Yeah, so actually, this question was more directed to Joanna. Seeing that, well, I also literally just completed the NCAS program today. So it's funny that you mentioned that.
Congrats.
But thank you so much. And if anybody's interested, I'm not quite sure if I can link, because I think there's the opening for application starts tomorrow. So that would be for community college, aerospace scholars to reapply again. I had a question for you though.
Sure.
Yeah, so I just wanted to see exactly how exactly were you able to find out in like the different departments, like who you would essentially talk to while at JPL. I'm pretty sure that you get to get familiar with the I don't know, like you get to familiar with the people and I guess the culture, but I'm not quite sure how you network um to that point, I guess. Yeah, if that makes any sense. Sorry.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Hi, Diana. Well, first off, congrats on finishing
Thank you.
NCAS. I hope you had fun. I think it's a really fun competition.
It was.
So yeah, JPL is a huge place. I think there's about 6,000 to 7,000 employees now. It's a 177-acre, pretty much our own little town. And I think the way I went about it, if I remember correctly, was, well, first off, when you intern here, the person you intern for is basically your mentor. That's the person you go to for any questions you may have. You also have a whole community supporting you. So, for example, Otto, the one that I interned for first, he also had coworkers that I could go to for questions. And as a matter of fact, he would encourage that I would reach out to other people for questions and slowly start building those relationships. But also we do have an internal, what do you call it? Like a database with information. So that database, I can look up, you know, JPL director or JPL integration and testing lead. You can see these people in the hierarchy within JPL. And then from there, and you get access to all of their information, their, you know, phone number, their email. I would not recommend calling them or texting them. You know, definitely stick to email, at least for the first time of the first time you contact them. But yeah, it's not. It does seem daunting, especially from the outside, and it's hard to get people's contact information because that's not something you can Google. You know, like their JPL email. But once you're in, you do have access to everybody's email, their positions, their background, what school they went to, and what they work on. So it becomes just a matter of sending out emails. And you can also send your emails, which I would sometimes, I would say, you know, if you think there's somebody else I should redirect this question to, please advise. And people are happy to direct you to the right people.
Perfect. Thank you so much for answering that.
Sure, no problem.
Fantastic. All right, great questions. For everyone, I just put the link out to everybody in the chat for the NCAS. If any of you are interested in more information about it, feel free to check it out. You should be able to see it in the chat now, right? I think I sent that to everyone. Okay. Next up, we have Stephanie. I am asking you to unmute now, Stephanie.
Oh
Hey,
man.
Stephanie, how are you?
Hi. Good. Can you guys hear me
Is
well? Yeah.
Is your last name Gamez? How do you pronounce your name? I'm sorry. Is it Gamez? I apologize.
Sounded like
we
Gamez.
never
No,
met.
it's okay. That was
So
great.
sorry.
I haven't heard that one, but I like it. It's Gamez,
Gamez, okay.
or in Spanish is Gamez.
Gamez?
Whatever, it
All right.
doesn't matter.
Excellent.
Yeah, some
All right.
people just say games, like video games.
Let's see how people can butcher
Yeah,
your name
but
today.
yeah, no.
Okay. Welcome. All right.
No worries. Oh,
Well, now that I
thank you
managed
guys
to
for
mess your
having
name
me.
up 3 or 4 different ways in a row, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and why you chose the STEM career you did?
Oh my. Well, it was quite a journey, but okay. So, yeah, I'm currently, well, obviously I'm Stephanie, right? But I'm currently a scientist for a startup biotech company here in San Diego called Agrigene. And what that company does is we pretty much make, we make transgenic insects. so that we could kind of use it as a tool to kind of kill off pest populations. So for example, the insect pest that I'm working on, it's a little tiny fruit fly. And what it does is in like berry farms or, like these crops, like berries, pretty much any blueberry, pretty much blueberries, raspberries, cherries, strawberries. The females like to lay their eggs in the fruit. And so when the eggs hatch in the fruit, the little maggots start eating through the fruit. And so farmers, they can't use this they can't sell it to you, right? Because it's just crap. And so they lose a lot of money because of, lost product. And so this pest is here in California, it's in Oregon, and it's in Washington. It's been a big problem. And so farmers right now are really desperate, trying to, they're using insecticides, but that's not helping because the insects, they're kind of cool because they develop insecticide resistance. So like that's becoming not useful. And so, I think some farmers spray like at least 30 times per year of their insecticides just to try to get these numbers down, and they still can't even do it, get rid of the problem. And so what our company does is we try to do, instead of using chemical insecticides, we want to do it from a genetic modification kind of way. And so pretty much my job is to generate transgenic flies that are sterile. And we use this technology called CRISPR-Cas9. It's pretty big in the genetic modification field right now. So we pretty much use that tool to generate sterile males. And the idea is that if we generate a ton of these sterile males, we could release them into like these farms. And so these sterile males will then mate with the females. The females typically usually only mate once. And so once she's mated, she can't lay eggs, or if she does, those eggs can't hatch and they can't damage fruit. And so pretty much that's the end point, trying to reduce the damage of fruit. And so the cool thing about this, technology is that it could be applied to any insect, not just crop insects. We could apply it to mosquitoes, right? For like a health standpoint. And right now, my job is to like kind of show proof of concept of the technology, which the technology pretty much came from my grad school lab at UCSD. And so I was pretty much in that lab where that technology was developed. And so after my PhD, or before I graduated, I got hired on by Agrigene because they really needed a scientist to kind of, help with maintaining those transgenic lines and doing some molecular work. And then, yeah, I got in, and the cool thing is I'm still doing what I like. And I'm actually wondering to, where it's going to take me from here, but I'm really excited. And so pretty much I started when I was in, I guess when I was a child, like I got interested in biology, and Angela here could attest to this, right? Because she's heard the story, I've told her. There's a TV show called Forensic Files, and if you're not familiar with that show, it's just like a sort of reality crime show. It goes through real life cases, and investigators use like DNA or science, anything to help solve a crime. And so from an early age, just watching that just piqued my interest in just DNA. I was like, oh, DNA, right? So like I get really excited with seeing a picture of a gel, even though I didn't know what that meant, right? But it was a good thing that I had that interest. I had something to hold on to. And when I was in high school, I didn't have opportunities to join. I mean, there was clubs and stuff, but I was a kid who who just didn't pretty much believe in my abilities to succeed. I always thought that people with PhDs were geniuses. I always thought, I was just gonna, get a master's in biology and just be a forensic scientist. I didn't think of going above and beyond, right? And so in high school, I just got good grades. I didn't know how to network. I didn't know how to, look for scholarships. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff or get into internships. So, and it sucked because I felt like I was doing nothing, but it was just because I didn't know how. And then I transferred to, after high school, I went to Chaffey College, and I think it was really great that I went there. I kind of wanted to go, I initially wanted to go straight to university, like 4-year institution, because I thought that, that's what the smart kids did. And, but, my parents couldn't afford to pay the application fees. So, hey, do what your sister does. She went to community college. Fine. And so I did. And I followed my sister because she went to Chaffey. And I'm so glad I did, because that's where I met Angela, who's right here, and Mamta, who's also on this video here. And those were the 2 major professors that pretty much changed my life. And I mean, and I can't thank them enough, because without them, I don't think I would have gotten this far. But pretty much, after taking their classes, I just started talking to them. I joined, office hours, because I just wanted to be a good student. And, that's how we started talking. And eventually it just became, oh, what do you want to do when, after this and that? And, and we pretty much became friends after that, even after, I finished my courses with them, and I kept in contact. And I remember not knowing what to do after, Chaffey, because I was in Chaffey for 3 years. And even though, like, I felt that was a long time, but in the end, it's nothing, and people want to get out in 2 years, but I think it's best to take your time and talk to these professors and, keep in contact with them. And I remember that when I was thinking of transferring, Angela was kind of put that little seed in me saying, hey, why don't you do research? Have you ever thought about doing research? And I was like, I don't know. That sounds cool, but I guess, I'll try it out. And so she told me, hey, there's an internship in UCR and you should apply for it. And I remember also going to Mamta, and she also had an internship in, I think it was City of Hope. And so I applied to them, right, when I was transferring. And I remember that I got rejected by City of Hope, and I got rejected by a plant internship at UCR as well. And I was kind of sad about that, because I had a 4.0 GPA, because I was just, I just study-holic person. And I was like, well, if I can't get into these internships that are 4.0 GPA, then what the hell, what am I good at then? And then luckily the internship at UCR, they got me, and that's where I joined a lab to do research. And so that's where I fell in love with research right there. I worked in a lab, in an entomology lab that worked on malaria mosquitoes. And I remember getting the email because they were assigning each of the students to their lab and their professor. And I remember getting that email and it saying entomology. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can't do insects. I don't want to. I don't like them. And, I didn't even work with them. But then once I started working in that lab, that's where I fell in love. It was just something as simple as doing DNA extractions. I was just fascinated. And from there, I just kept working hard and spending, a lot of time in there. My professor noticed that, and he's like, he wanted to help me out. And so eventually, he hired me on as a paid student, and he gave me projects, and he let me help, other graduate students and postdocs in the lab. I, helping them made me get my name on papers, which in the academic field is really important. And then after that, he had accepted an offer at Google Life Sciences, which it kind of sucked because I really enjoyed being in his lab, but he had to leave. And before he left, he asked me, hey, you know, I want to hire you. I want to take you with me to San Fran. You know, we could work on mosquitoes with Google. And so I was like, oh my goodness, right? And I thought, well, that's it. That's the peak of everything, right? But then I started talking to my friends, you know, my colleagues, and they were telling me no. And, you know, they were giving me their opinions, and I was like, but it's Google, right? You know? And then I realized, well, they're right. If I go there, I'm probably going to just be a lab tech forever, because, you know, they pay good, but you can't advance, you know, without a master's or a PhD. And so, and I only had my bachelor's. And so I thought, you know what, I have to get my PhD now or never, you know? And so it was a really hard decision for me to reject that offer. And so I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna go get my PhD. And then from there, I'll, you know, see where that takes me. And and then, yeah, fast forward now, I eventually joined my advisor, Omar Akbari, he was a new professor at UCR. Then he got an offer from UCSD. And so pretty much he moved the whole lab to San Diego, and I joined him. And yeah, in like 4 years, I managed to graduate, and then that's where it took me to Agrigene now. So yeah, sorry for the long story.
It's great stuff. Great to hear about it. It's wonderful. I know you mentioned struggling with these feelings, like maybe you weren't, you know, at the very, you know, in the beginning you were talking about this. Feel like maybe you weren't good enough at this and everybody else was better at it. And this is a very common thing, right? We call it imposter syndrome. This idea that everybody else knows everything and I don't know anything, and I don't know how I got in this room, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Could you tell us, how did you deal with that? I mean, you know, I think that's a very common thing among students. And how do you deal with that, or how did you deal with it?
Well, it was really hard. And it was especially hard when the lab I was in for my PhD didn't really help with that regard, which is, you know, another, you know, thing that kind of comes along sometimes depending on who you pick for your PhD. But I had to start looking at my accomplishments. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that in the lab, you know, I was pretty successful at publishing things because I was just a hard worker. You know, I don't think I'm smart or anything. I'm just a hard worker because that's what my mom, you know, taught us to do. Just work hard. And, you know, it's okay if you're not intelligent or a genius, just work hard. And so I think several times I felt like I wasn't worth a PhD. And sometimes some people even told me, you know, I think you should master out. I think you should. And so at first, you know, that made me feel bad. But then I started looking at all the things I've done and all my friends and my colleagues, and realized, well, you know, these people helped me for a reason, and they helped me to get this far for a reason. And, you know, I could do this, you know, even though I'm not intelligent or a genius, I could still do this. And unless like something terrible happens like death or anything like that's not going to stop me. And so I think it was what helped me a lot was talking to friends, colleagues, and professors, because there's a point in time in my PhD where, you know, I was just, I didn't believe that I could graduate with a PhD. And then one day, actually, I talked to two professors, and I just asked them, hey, you know, like, do you mind if we just chat? You know, like I want to know your opinion on this. And so once I started talking to them, they start opening up, and then you tell them, hey, you know, I'm doing this and this and this, but what do you think? And they're like, oh yeah, like you could graduate like really fast if you want, you know, you could, that's definitely PhD material. I don't know, you know, why they're telling you that and why you don't think that. And so and then you'll notice that too, that when you talk to other people, like professors or friends, mostly professors, that they actually like to help you. It's crazy. I've heard that before, that, you know, they like to help, but I guess when I started talking to them, you realize that, hey, you know, like they actually like to help people. And so like, it's, don't be afraid to ask them, hey, you know, what do you think about this? Or, you know, their opinion on things. And you'll be surprised how many people just, they don't brush you off. They'll just sit down and talk to you about things. And they like to talk about their personal journey as well, which I think also helps a lot. But yeah, no, and then also friends too, because friends also, you know, even they're like at your same level, I guess. So I had some friends in grad school who, you know, they weren't professors, they didn't have degrees, they were like same age as me, but chatting with them kind of helped, you know, helped us go forward, because we're all in the same boat and we all knew, hey, we could do this, we're not dumb, we're, you know, and you know, we're here we got this far, so, you know, like, come on, you could do it. Yeah.
Absolutely, well said. I always tell my students, I said, hey, everyone, I'm not decorative. Like, that's why I'm here. And they always say,
Yeah.
don't mind if I email you? I'm like, what do you think I have this job for? Like, I'm not decorative. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very surprising sometimes. I'm like, you think I don't want to talk to you? You know?
Yeah, no,
It's very unusual. I'm always surprised, you know. And I know I've certainly had the same thing with the imposter syndrome thing. Kind of just for the people with their cameras on, could you raise your hands if you've at some point or other had this issue, like professionally, where you go, hey, I feel like maybe I'm not enough, or I might be worried about it, or whatever.
Aww.
Yeah, look around. Pretty much everybody does. So if you're one of the students on the, you know, here tonight, don't think you're the only one. I promise you, you're not. Almost everybody does at some point or another. I would be surprised if somebody didn't at some point in their careers.
Yeah.
Did anybody have any questions for Stephanie? Stephanie, specific things that you wanted to ask? I'm just going to look around through the attendees here. If you do, feel free to raise your hand with the little reactions button on the bottom. I'm looking. Still looking? No? Okay. None right now. That's all right. Very good. Our next panel is Purva. Hey, oh, I'm unmuted, Purva. There you go. Oh, that's Kathy. I'm sorry, Kathy. There we go. Now I've asked Purva. Purva, you should be able to unmute yourself now. There you go. Good evening. How are you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Purva Chaudhary, and I am a teacher at a high school in Fontana. And I had been working here as an instructor, math instructor here at Chaffee for the past 6-7 years now. And my profession is my passion. So this is all I know. Like I cannot do anything else. So about me, I was born and brought up and all my education was in India. So I started with a bachelor's degree in environmental science and math. So that was my major. And honestly, when I went to college, that was a 4-year university. So when I went to college, I honestly had no goals. Like, I did not know what I'm going to do. So, okay, by default, after high school, all right, like you know, in India and in most of the households, this is not the question that, are you going to college or not? Like, obviously you're going to college, but which college? The question is always like, which college? So, all right, I got into one of the prestigious universities in India, that is Delhi University. And by the end of actually by the beginning of the second year, I kind of, even then I did not know what I'm doing with my life. So because money was tight, so just to be able to sustain myself, I started tutoring. and the kids from the neighborhood would come to me, and the word of mouth, like they said that, okay, she does a good job or whatever. So then then more people started contacting me, and I got so busy that I did not have the time for my own school. So but then then I had this feeling, like a few people, like a few parents told me that like their parents, like kids' parents, they told me that, why don't you become a teacher, like you do a good job. And even then I was not really convinced. But eventually when I started, like, I mean, when I kept working as a tutor, and then even at my college, like when I was in the last year of my undergrad, they said that, why don't you tutor the first year, like freshmen. So and then that was a time when it dawned on me that, yes, this is what I want to do for a living, because this is what I love to do. And then I finished, like after my undergrad, I finished my the teacher credential program in India. That's called BEd, like Bachelor's of Education. So that was 2 years. And then I became a teacher. So that initially I was teaching, I started with elementary school, then moved to the middle school. So then during that time, I got married, I had 2 kids, and in India, I lived in the joint family. It's a like huge family with 1 kitchen. You just get 1 room to each other, to yourself. So 10 years after my undergrad, it just occurred to me that I should do my master's degree. And of course in math, because math is what I loved. So that was a challenge, like, I mean, undergrad, yes, money was tight. I worked, and it was manageable. Even my credentialing program was manageable, but the challenge was doing my master's degree after I got married, and I had 2 kids. So like education, my own education was like, that took a back seat. Like nobody realized that, like, she's doing something real. So no, like I had to squeeze time out of my schedule to somehow, like, after doing everything that I'm supposed to do, as a daughter-in-law, as a mother, as a wife, and as a cook, like in the kitchen. So my education was like, it was hard. It was very, very hard. So because I had to justify to everyone that tomorrow is my exam, I need to study for that. So finally, I mean, I'm thankful that I survived. So then I was still in India. So it was, I was a teacher there for a little over a decade. And then things happened. And then I had a lot of family here in California. So they started telling me that, I mean, they need teachers here, math and science teachers here in the US. So why don't you move here? So, I just came here as a tourist. I stayed with my aunt, and I just explored, like, I mean, do I even want to be here? Like, I don't know, because it was my first time ever I traveled in a foreign country from India to the US. So that was my first ever international travel. So then when I came here and I explored what are my options here, and I figured out that, okay, you need to be credentialized here, you need to take the CBIST and all that stuff. So when I was still a tourist here, so I finished my CBIST, I did my credentialing program, I got my teacher credential from California. And then by that time, my stay was over, because you can stay at the most 6 months. So then I had to go back to India. And when I went back to India, then I realized that, no, I like it here. So then by that time, I knew the route that, okay, I can, so I got to know about EdJoin. So that is the place where you go and apply for a teacher. So I applied, like, literally, during the daytime, because there is a difference of approximately like 11 and a half hours time difference. So during the daytime, I would be working as a teacher there. And then nighttime, when it was day here, I would keep applying, because that was the only time I had with 2 kids and a joint family. So I would work, I would keep applying on EdJoin. And finally, like 3, 4, 5 months later, I started getting interview calls and everything. So I interviewed at quite a few places. And then I had the options to choose from 3 jobs that three districts that I really liked. And then finally I got in Fontana Unified. And then after working there for quite a few years, then I saw a job opening here at Chaffee, and they needed at least a master's degree, which thankfully I had. So I applied here and I was interviewed, and then I got the position, and I am so happy to be here.
And we are thrilled to have you. We're better for it. I'm curious, you mentioned a couple of times, when we were talking about your background there, challenges of trying to balance out other needs. For example, you mentioned things like children, family, in-laws. What advice would you give to people who want to go into the STEM field about how to allocate resources? How do you balance time? How do you set your boundaries? What do you do about that? How do you handle it?
Yes, absolutely. That is the hardest part. But one needs to be very, very clear, because if you don't take yourself seriously, nobody will. And you need to stand for yourself. And the thing is that because I'm a high school teacher also, and many times, we get to see the parents. That does not happen at Chaffee, but at the high school level, when we get to see the parents, and let's say we are talking about the academic achievement of a student, which is not up to the mark, the parents think that math skills are genetic. So multiple times I have heard mother or father saying that, oh, I hated math, I never got math, so how can I expect her to get it? So this is a very, very common phobia or a notion or a myth. So that has to be deleted, literally eliminated completely. So, and again, unless you stand up for yourself, nobody will. If you don't take yourself seriously, people, I'm telling you, yes, it sounds like complaining, but it was brutal. I was during my master's degree, I had to fight for my time to be able to prepare for assignments and tests. If there is a family function, as a daughter-in-law, I have to go, even if I have an exam 2 days later. So I had to fight for it. And, with an upset mood, it's so hard to focus on books, but I survived.
Absolutely. I've always thought that if you don't have a plan for yourself, other people are happy to put you into their plan. That's no problem, right? But when you say, hey, I need to plan for what I want, so that's awesome to see and hear about. Thank you so much. Does anybody have a specific question for Purva so far about, what she specifically was talking about? I'm just looking at the list. See. No, nobody yet? Okay, looks like not yet. Okay, very good. Thank you, Purva. Our final panelist today is Heather David. Heather, I'm going to unmute you here. There you go. You should now be able to talk. Heather, how are you? Good evening.
Hi, I'm well, thank you.
Hey, we got you on video. I'm thrilled. Yeah, Heather and I were going back and forth because we couldn't get her video on. I'm like, oh boy, are we gonna do it? Are we gonna do it in the black screen thing, or Heather, please tell us a little about you. Go for it.
Okay, so I am a clinical laboratory scientist. That means that, I have 2 jobs. Right now, I'm working at Riverside Community Hospital in their laboratory department. The 2 parts of the department that I work in the most is hematology and chemistry. And I also run all their COVID tests. In hematology, I've had the honor of finding and detecting new leukemia cases so that they can get help right away. And in chemistry, of course, there's lots of things like glucose and liver enzymes and things that we test. My second job, reference lab, and I work in the infectious disease department and their COVID lab, but we do run, let's see, the other night we were backlogged about 130,000 tests can talk about. But in the infectious disease, we run things like C. diff and HPV and other infectious diseases. And let's see, not sure what else. That's a good intro, I guess, right?
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. Just for the viewers, hematology is blood, right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah.
So CBCs and
Excellent. Okay. So in terms of your position now, I mean, what is it that you like about the most, and what don't you like about it maybe too?
okay. Well, so when I was in the Army, I was a MLT for the Army, and I found out that there is a bachelor's degree level. So I went CLS, which is the bachelor's degree level. I recently graduated in 2017, and then 2019, I got my first job. And my first job, I started out at $42 an hour with Aerotech, which is a temp agency. And then at my next job, I got $48 an hour. And then it's just jumped from there to where now 2 years later, I'm making over 50 at one job and over 60 at another job. So I love the money. The people are great, and it's amazing because
Good.
Yeah, but so the other thing I love is the people are just great. I mean, the fact that I can impact patient care without directly interacting with patients, because I'm not a great people person. I have like a little social anxiety, but I want to help. I love impacting patient lives, and I love to help. So that's one of the best things. Let me see from here. Oh, and also with this, being a CLS, I'm a generalist, but I can specialize in blood banking or any other department. One of the ones that I'm looking at right now is getting my master's in molecular diagnostics so that I can help, with maybe further targeting the different COVID variants and stuff. I just think it's so cool.
That's very cool stuff. Sounds fantastic. Okay. Were there any questions for Heather specifically from the audience? I'm not really sure. I'm looking through right now. So don't forget, feel free to use the reaction button to raise your hand, since I would have to unmute you. Anyone? No? Okay. There are no questions specifically for Heather. Are there any questions for any of our panelists? I mean, let's open the floor up for whatever it is that you would like to ask about, related to any of these topics. Oh, we got hands. Oh, wow, we got a bunch of hands. Okay, here we go. Let's start out with Jasmine. Looks like Jasmine Vasquez. You are up. Good evening.
Hello. Hi, Heather. What is the CLS? What does that stand for?
It's clinical laboratory scientist.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I was wondering. Maybe I missed it.
No, that's good. I didn't know either. I was wondering, Heather, you also mentioned, was it not MLS? That's in real estate. There was another term with 3 letters like an L or something. Do you remember what the other one was? There was CLS and another one. I couldn't remember what the other one was. And I was like, I don't know what those mean either. I should ask.
MLT, that's the associate degree level. It's medical laboratory technician.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, Monta. I am unmuting you. Good evening, Monta.
Yes. Hi. Actually, I don't want to take away precious time from all the wonderful speakers who are here to speak about themselves. I just want to say something about Stephanie and Heather. Actually, I have taught both of these girls, wonderful girls. And I want to say Heather and Stephanie both are some of the hardest working students that I ever had. They both are highly motivated, very, very responsible, also very courteous and respectful of others. They always greet you with beautiful smile on their faces. Also, these girls never complained about amount of work they had to do in my class. It was lots of work. They never complained about the complexity of what we did. They always kept asking for more. And I just want to say it is their own attitude toward the studies or just being a good student in general, which have taken them where they are. I just want to say I'm very proud of you. JP is proud of you, and thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think most of our panelists would agree. I think people have this weird idea that like professors have, I don't know what it is, like that we're not human beings or something. And it's like, I think most of it's just because we work so hard and every time you fall down, you just get back up. I mean, would you ladies agree with that? I mean, that probably seems to be the big thing, right? It's tenacity. You know, I tell students all the time, it's not about that you have an innate ability, it's something different. It's that you just keep trying. You know, it's probably the most important thing. Yeah. Linda, I'm going to unmute you. Linda, that should let you unmute right now. Linda, hey, Linda.
Hi, Heather. Hi, I was wondering what the job market is like in your field. Are there a lot of jobs available? Are they needing? Right, can you unmute Heather?
I apologize. I'm going to unmute all the panelists for this, so any of you can jump in. I just realized that you're all sitting there quietly. I'm like, why are they talking? Because they're all muted. Here we go. I am now unmuting, asking all of you to unmute, so you can feel free to unmute and anybody can jump in. Any of our panelists.
Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is why I wanted to speak tonight. And this is why, oh my goodness, we are so shorthanded, so bad right now in the laboratory. It's getting to where I can take my pick of anywhere. I recently got like a $2 raise just because they want to keep me so badly. The hospitals and laboratories are in such dire need of people that you can decide whatever hours you want to do. You want any location. I mean, you really have the pick of any job you want right now.
Wow. Well, I know that here in San Diego, there's a high demand. I mean, I'm just surprised at how many positions there are available for people who just have bachelors. You know, it's insane. Just look on LinkedIn or, you know, apply to any biotech company you like Illumina or something like that, and you'll find that the majority of them really want bachelor's students fresh out of college, and so I mean, some of them request experience, but you know, it's okay if you don't have experience, you just apply, and as long as you're available and willing to learn, I think that's all they care about. I mean, it's crazy.
In my inbox, every week I get 3 to 5. Hey, come to our lab in San Diego. Hey, come to our lab in Oakland, and we have a $10,000 sign-on bonus, and we'll help you move. We'll pay for your relocation. I mean, and then there's lots of people that are going to Traveler. They're becoming travelers. So in that case, they're short-term assignments. And there's one lady that you can find on Instagram. She's a CLS. She goes to the Martin Islands, I believe it is, and she's there for a few weeks at a time being paid to just relax on the island there.
Sounds like awesome work. Fantastic. Angela Burke-Herrick, one of our professors here, has her hand up. Angela, I just took you on the ask to unmute. You should be able to, okay. Hey, Angela.
I just wanted to follow up on that. First, it's so great to see my former students. So just love to you guys. And then, but I did want to follow up, like, where did you post your information and what kinds of skills, like, because I try to encourage students now to really kind of keep up that LinkedIn profile, because I've heard that oftentimes they'll just get like interviews and those kinds of things without actually having to apply. Has that been true for you guys?
Absolutely, for me. That's oh my gosh, I get harassed on LinkedIn like weekly.
Yeah, I do as well. I get emails every now and then on LinkedIn from, just recruiters going onto my profile and seeing basically my public resume on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Can I ask, I don't know how it is in the biology field because I'm obviously in that field, and I know Joanna, yours is, you know, engineering, a little closer to what I've done. do any of you feel like that is, how necessary is it to specialize is what I'm wondering. Because sometimes, for example, if you're in materials, they might say, oh, you know exactly this, that's not, that's too niche or that's too broad. Do you think that that's really important, or is it something where you go, okay, a general degree without a specialization is the better way to go? I'm not sure how much you think you should niche down versus be broad. And Stacy, maybe you'd be the first one to start off with this, given that you have students coming through UCI and you see the whole field as an academic. What would you say about that?
That's a really good question. I have been, this is my third year here, so I'm by no means an expert, but I think it's a combination of your specialty and your accolades, things like your GPA, or if you've won any awards, or if you have research experience, because individuals can write you letters of recommendation. Those are taken very seriously if you're applying for research and development positions at companies, or if you're going to a national laboratory. And I should clarify, when I say national laboratory, I'm mostly talking about the Department of Energy national laboratories that focus on things like nuclear weapons, nuclear energy, solar energy, and the power grid, among many other things. So there's also Department of Defense laboratories. All of those government labs are in dire need of people to hire because there's a huge wave of retirements going on now. So the baby boomer generation is retiring, and they need to fill just at, I know because I know people at these national labs, at Los Alamos National Lab and Sandia National Lab in New Mexico, where I'm from, they need to hire something like 10,000 people in the next 5 to 10 years. And it's not just people with PhDs, this is people with bachelor's and master's degrees in science and engineering fields. So for those positions, I think they often look for a combination of, do you have skills in a certain area, but more also your dedication and your personal qualities and your motivation. Because at a lot of companies, they can't necessarily tell you what your job will be for proprietary reasons, or if you're working for the military, you need a clearance, or any government lab, you typically need a clearance. And so they have to kind of look for students that are interested in this type of work. So if you're working for the government, are you interested in the mission of, not making a ton of money for a company, but being paid a good salary to support what the United States needs in terms of safety and security? So I had one student who got her master's from UCI in material science and engineering, and she went to Sandia National Labs, not to do material science and engineering, but to be a systems engineer. And they were just as interested in her really good grades and her degree in engineering as they were in the fact that she was really responsible. I was able to write a glowing recommendation for her. It was so easy. And in her interest in serving her country. So I think the personal qualities are really important too.
Fantastic. Good answer. Thank you. For all of our panelists, just a general question, how would you view the challenges that women have going into STEM fields specifically? I mean, I think there might be some unique things that you go, okay, here's what I found. Do any of you have any things that you go, this is what's been a challenge for me specifically, as a woman in STEM?
Bradley, before we move on to that question, I do want to mention a little more about whether you should emphasize in something before getting a job or not. So I think that you actually should try to find what you like. So the reason why I moved around a lot within JPL when I was interning was to try to find that group that I fit in the best and do the work that doesn't feel like work. It just feels like I'm just messing around on my computer all day. I absolutely love what I do. And I found it during my third internship, with the third group that I interned for. And I think it's really important to try to intern as much as you can and try to find something you truly, truly love, because once you graduate and you start working, it's been my experience and my observation that at least in the engineering fields, once you do one type of job, that basically fills up your resume. And from there on, it's going to be a little bit harder to try and do something different. So for example, I had interned at JPL only, but before graduating, I had a job offer from the Edwards Air Force Base out in Palmdale for it was an electronic warfare engineer with them, and I was super excited about it because I'm an aerospace major. I love fighter jets. I love anything to do with flying. But I was going to work, and I was going to work with pilots, which I was super excited about. But that job there was going to be data analysis. I was not going to build hardware, design anything, fabricate anything. I was merely only going to analyze data from computers. So I spoke to my mentor from JPL, and I tried to weigh my pros and cons. And I realized that if I went the Edwards or the Air Force route, it was gonna be really hard to come back into JPL because we don't do data analysis. And if I did come back to JPL, well, I mean, we do some data analysis, but it's a very niche field, not a lot of jobs in that. And so I realized that if I went the Air Force route, my resume was going to be filled with data analysis. I could no longer come into JPL as an integration and test engineer. So be careful about the job you take, your first job, especially, because you kind of end up in that field, and it'll be much harder to, go the opposite way. So you want to do that when you intern, because if you don't like your internship, quitting an internship will not look as bad as quitting your job, a year into getting the job. And like I said, it'll be much harder to switch fields. So try to join as many clubs as you can on campus, which is also what I did, and how I found that aerospace was the thing for me. So try to do that. Basically, try to find within your major what it is you like to do the most, because you can get stuck in that field.
Yeah, very cool. I've seen friends and colleagues who have that exact same issue. They're like, okay, how often do I move positions, and what's lateral versus up in a position? How do I do better but still get more responsibility? And it's very interesting how to navigate that. Yeah.
Right.
Does anybody else of our panelists have anything to add on that particular issue or on the challenges that you faced in your pursuit of a STEM career in general?
I think Heather has her hand up.
Oh, where's Heather? Oh, Heather, I'm sorry.
But she's muted.
Yep, not anymore. She's not. Heather?
Sorry, I was muted again.
All right. Yeah. So what do you think, Heather?
So, well, as a CLS, to become a CLS, you become a generalist, and really the most successful in our career would be to be a jack of all trades. So learning microbiology, immunology, urinalysis, coag. I mean, we're doing it all. And the more that you know, the more you can cross train, the more marketable you become. I did want to speak to the biggest challenges. I think with the STEM majors, we have a problem with accumulating way too many credits. And so when it comes time to get our upper division classes and stuff, they started at the community college level, they were giving me problems saying, hey, you can't get this class because you have too many credits, and you need to move on or something. But I think they were changing that before after I graduated, so that science majors had a little bit higher cap. But that was my challenge, trying to get into my final classes before transferring, and then having kids. It's so funny. I have an 11-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I say that my 11-year-old was my associate's degree and my 4-year-old was my bachelor's degree, because I graduated with my bachelor's around the time my 4-year-old was born. So it was a challenge. I mean, as a female, my husband was very traditional, but he was also very supportive. So it's difficult. I had severe burnout, and unfortunately, I think that came out with some of my instructors at the very end. But you just have to push through it. I mean, you have to believe in yourself and believe that this is where you're supposed to be.
Fantastic. Yeah, very excellent. Anybody else need to comment on that or any ideas? Yes, Stacy, of course.
Thanks for bringing that up, Heather. I'm also a mom of two daughters, 5 and 2, almost 6 and 3. And I think that as a woman, and I got my undergraduate and PhD degrees in physics and math. I never really felt like being a woman was I would say disadvantage, or, that it put me in any hardship until I became a mom. And then I realized, oh, wow, people have been telling me all my life I can do everything a man can do. And now I realize my body is very different. And, so I think not every woman wants to have children. Not every woman becomes a birth mother, but motherhood definitely made me realize we have a lot of problems and barriers that don't need to be in the way of women entering STEM careers. I also echo what Heather said about how you somehow find strength in yourself you had no idea existed. I interviewed here at UCI for the second time. It was more like I had an offer and they wanted me to come back and check it out again. Less than 2 weeks before my second daughter was born. She was born a little early because of some medical complications. And both times in the postpartum period, I wrote proposals that got funded. So somehow you find in yourself this strength, but it feels impossible a lot of the time until you're doing it. So I like to say that women are superhuman because literally we create humans in our body, and that's kind of the definition: 2 humans in 1, superhuman. But I think also that if you are a woman in a STEM field and you're finding that you're feeling alienated in your classes, maybe you look around the room, you don't see people that look like you. For me, I was an idiot. I guess I didn't notice that until too late. But I think that one thing that can be empowering, and this was helpful for me once I became a mother, is to find ways to advocate for people like you. So one thing that's really important to me, partially because my PhD advisor cared about this a lot too, is giving people from what we call in academia underrepresented backgrounds a chance to succeed. So what this looked like in my PhD was a lot of students who had transferred from community college. Where I come from in New Mexico, we don't have this nice pipeline from community colleges to universities. It's been getting better, but it's really challenging to start that way. But California has this much better system. So my advisor inspired me to do roughly the same thing. And I hosted 2 Chafee students, summer 2020 and 2021. I got one to come back the second time, and we're writing up a paper that we're going to submit to a scientific publication that he's a co-author on. And he really did, contribute in an incredible way. So, community college is the time where you can get involved in research, and anyone can contribute, even if you have no experience. And also, being an advocate for people like you, whether it's me advocating for moms at work having, say, a lactation space, or like making sure that graduate students know about their parental leave opportunities, or other people from underrepresented backgrounds, whether that's socioeconomically disadvantaged, or maybe ethnic groups that are underrepresented. This is sort of how I help, I guess, both help other people and deal with being a woman in a field where I don't see very many women.
Fantastic, thank you. Wow, very cool. We have a question from Jasmine. I'm unmuting you, Jasmine. You have a Jasmine, are you there? Maybe not. There we go, Jasmine.
Hi, yes, I'm here. Sorry.
All right.
My question was, I have a bachelor's in neuroscience, biological psychology. How could I bridge that education into something like, I was very interested in what Heather was talking about, where you work as a clinical laboratory scientist. I wrote it down.
Well, there are some prerequisites. There are 4 prerequisites that you need to qualify to apply for the 1-year program to get your certification and then license, California license. The 4, and you can have a bachelor's degree in anything as long as it's, you know, science-based. So biology, mine was microbiology, and I chose that because it had more of the prerequisites within the program. The 4 prerequisites are hematology, immunology, medical microbiology, and analytical chem. And really, once you get those done, then you can apply for a program. There are just a few programs, and this is where the bottleneck is in Southern California, is the fact that we don't have too many programs.
Oh, okay. Are these
Sounds like someone's trying to talk. I'm so sorry.
Oh, is my connection? My connection might be bad.
No? Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, it's just Jasmine following up. Jasmine, did you have a follow-up question on that? Or no?
Oh, okay.
Jasmine?
Yes.
Does that answer your question okay, or was there anything else that you needed to follow up
Yes,
on?
it did. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
It did answer my question. Great. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the panelists? I'm just looking through to see if anybody has a hand up.
I just want to invite anyone that if any of you have any questions regarding my my career or anything, you guys can, I don't know how you call it, friend me on LinkedIn if you like, and then you can see my path and you can see the things that I did. And I have a lot of the undergraduate research that I did as well. So.
Very cool. Thank you very much. That's fantastic. Were there any other things, like as we wrap up? I mean, I don't see any more questions from the audience. I'm watching to see if they come in at the last minute here. Was there anything else that you felt you need to add that you'd like to say, hey, if I need to say something to my younger self, this is what I would say? Is there anything else that you'd like to add? I mean, I guess we covered a lot of great stuff here. I'm not sure if there's anything that you're like, oh, I forgot to mention this, you know. Anyone? I'm looking, going once.
I can say something. Professors can always say things.
I was gonna say, we only got more talking. Come on, what are you talking about? Go ahead.
I guess what I would say is that it's possible to have a job where your enjoyment and excitement for learning is your job. So I feel very fortunate that as a professor and as a researcher, I still get to do the things that I'm most passionate about, that, you know, really make me excited and kept me going into the lab as a student. And now I get to help other students have that job. I think that's one of the really rewarding things about a career in STEM, is that we're constantly learning. This is a rapidly developing field with so many subfields. It touches so many aspects of modern life. And we urgently need more people, more creative, hardworking people to be involved. And it's really actually a really fun job because you're constantly learning new things. New technologies are coming in, new tools to probe the universe or to probe the tiniest parts of our bodies. All of this is just, it's really exciting. So if you're kind of on the fence about, you know, a career in STEM, I would say, think about if it really excites you. And if it really excites you, it doesn't matter if you feel like you're smart enough, because what we honestly need is hardworking, excited people. Yeah, well said. Absolutely. Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's the best advice you could probably give, right? Is hardworking always beats, you know, raw ability if you just keep working hard enough, long enough, all the time, you know. Okay, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm gonna clap for you. We're all clapping in our heads because I can't unmute all 50 people at the same time. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We really hope you got something out of it. Thank you especially to all of our panelists for taking your time out of what I'm sure is a very busy schedule to be here with us. And to all the students, we hope you gained something out of it, and keep watching for more STEM events, you know, in the upcoming semester. And if that's all we have, we thank you for coming and have a good evening. Thank you so much, everybody.